I trusted my stepmom to help me apply for my dream college. Turns out, she had other plans, and they didn't include me succeeding. Before I get into it, just take a moment with me. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone close to you, this story might hit home. Let me tell you what really happened. My name's Eli Turner. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I was 18 and finishing high school when all of this went down. My mom passed away when I was 12, and a year later, my dad married Marla, a woman who smiled a lot but never really looked me in the eye. She always acted nice around my dad, made us dinner, asked about school. But I always felt something cold behind her voice, especially when it came to her son, Trevor. Trevor was a year older than me and honestly didn't care much about anything except parties and video games. Still, Marla treated him like a prince. She pushed him to apply to the best colleges, bragged about his potential, and always compared us in small ways that stung. I didn't say much. I kept my head down, studied hard, and set my eyes on one dream, Columbia University. It was my mom's dream for me too, before she died. I wanted to make her proud. So I did everything right, worked on my essay, got great grades, and planned to apply early decision. When the deadline came close, I was juggling school and a part-time job. Marla saw me stressed one evening and offered to help. She said she'd double-check the application and submit it for me while I finished a history project. I was surprised, but honestly, I wanted to believe she cared. Days passed. I asked if she had submitted it. She said yes. I thanked her and waited, full of hope. Weeks later, I got nothing. No confirmation. No email. I logged in to check the portal. My heart dropped. It said no application received. I refreshed the page like 10 times, thinking there was a mistake. But it was clear. Nothing had been submitted. I ran to Marla and showed her. She looked confused, then blamed me. Said maybe I didn't click submit, or maybe I was too careless. When my dad got home, she had already told him I was blaming her for my own mess. He believed her. I stood there, completely heartbroken. Everything I worked for was gone, and no one believed me. I went to my room and closed the door. That night, I cried harder than I ever had since losing my mom. But something inside me changed. I wasn't going to let this be the end. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept spinning, trying to figure out how this could have happened. I double-checked everything. I had no confirmation email, no receipt, nothing. My Columbia application had never been submitted. My heart sank deeper with every click. The next morning, I gathered the courage to ask Marla again. Calmly, I said, "Hey, do you remember submitting my Columbia application? Because I can't find any confirmation." She raised an eyebrow like I was bothering her. "Of course I did. You probably just missed something. Did you check your spam folder?" "I did," I said. "There's nothing. Not even in the portal." She rolled her eyes. "Well, maybe you forgot to press submit. Don't go blaming other people for your mistakes, Eli." Her voice was so smooth, like she actually believed the lie she was telling. But I knew the truth. I remembered exactly what I gave her. The file was done. She offered to help. She looked me in the eyes and told me she'd handle it. Now she was pretending like I was imagining things. I went to my dad that evening, hoping he'd at least give me the benefit of the doubt. But the moment I mentioned Marla's name, his tone shifted. "Eli," he said, setting down his fork, "your stepmother tried to help you. If something went wrong, take responsibility. You're not a kid anymore." Just like that, it was 2 against 1. I felt invisible. I walked out of the room, feeling like I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, not just with anger, but something deeper, betrayal. I thought Marla didn't like me, sure. But I didn't think she'd ruin my future just to make her own son look better. And my dad? He didn't even question her. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a fresh notebook. On the first page, I wrote, "Keep record of everything." I didn't even know what I was planning yet. All I knew was that I couldn't trust anyone in that house. From now on, I needed to protect myself. Every time Marla said something off or manipulative, I'd jot it down. I started using a voice recorder on my phone when we were alone, just in case she said something she couldn't take back. She was good at acting sweet in front of Dad, but the mask always slipped when it was just me. I didn't talk back. I didn't argue. I played it cool, like I was over it. But deep down, I wasn't. Not even close. I stared at my Columbia rejection letter almost every night. It wasn't a mistake. It was stolen from me. But I wasn't going to cry about it anymore. I whispered to myself one night, gripping that letter in my hand, "This isn't over." And I meant it. A week after I got the silent rejection from Columbia, Trevor came bursting through the front door with a Columbia hoodie on, yelling, "Guess who's Ivy League, baby?" I was sitting on the couch, trying to finish an essay for school, but the sound of his voice made my stomach twist. Marla followed behind him with a tray of cupcakes she probably baked just for the occasion. My dad clapped Trevor on the back, like he had just won the lottery. "I told you he could do it," Marla beamed. My Trevor always had what it takes. Trevor tossed his hoodie at me and smirked. "You can borrow it if you want, Eli. Might be the closest you ever get to Columbia." Everyone laughed, except me. I forced a smile and handed his hoodie back without a word. Inside, something burned. I knew Trevor didn't even write his own essay. I'd seen him struggling with grammar in text messages. He hated reading, skipped classes, and didn't even know Columbia was in New York until a few months ago. But he had something I didn't, Marla. Over the next few days, Trevor walked around like a celebrity. He bragged to our relatives, neighbors, anyone who'd listen. Mom did everything, he told them. Application forms, even my FAFSA stuff. She made sure I got in. All I had to do was hit submit. That's when it all clicked. She didn't forget to submit my application. She chose not to. She made sure Trevor looked like the golden boy, the one who got into Columbia, and she made sure I stayed invisible. It wasn't about helping him. It was about crushing me. I didn't tell anyone what I'd realized. What was the point? No one would believe me. Instead, I quietly accepted my admission to Lincoln University, a solid state school about 2 hours away. It wasn't Columbia, but it was a start. That night, I stared at the acceptance letter from Lincoln. I could have torn it up. I could have cried again, but I didn't. I did something else. I made a promise. I told myself that if Trevor was going to Columbia because of lies and shortcuts, then I was going to rise the honest way, and I was going to do it better than him. I started planning. I looked into credit transfers. I searched for Columbia's transfer requirements. I listed out scholarships, side jobs, and housing options. I even downloaded a budgeting app. No more trusting anyone. No more mistakes. They wanted me to believe I was less than Trevor, but I would make sure they saw the truth, even if it took me years. Let them laugh now. Let them think I lost. This story was only getting started. Starting at Lincoln University felt like walking into the shadows. No big city lights, no Ivy League name, no fancy dorm with skyline view. But I didn't complain. I played my role, the quiet, humbled stepson who had accepted his fate. Marla acted like she'd won. She'd smile at me with fake pity and say things like, "Lincoln's not so bad, Eli. You'll make friends." My dad told people I was happy to stay close to home. Trevor barely acknowledged my existence. Already busy shopping for New York outfits and posing for Instagram stories in front of Columbia banner. I nodded, smiled, said thank you, but inside I was far from done. From the first day at Lincoln, I had one mission: get out. I met with my advisor, carefully selected classes that matched Columbia's transfer credit requirements, and made sure I took the hardest ones first. I sat in the front row, asked questions, submitted every paper early. I wasn't just trying to pass, I was trying to prove I deserved more. But good grades weren't enough. I needed money. I didn't want Marla to have any control over my future again, so I applied for a night job at a local warehouse. It was hard. The hours were long, my back hurt constantly, and sometimes I fell asleep with my face in my books. But every paycheck reminded me I was building this on my own. No one knew what I was doing. I didn't post pictures of campus. I didn't tell my dad I was planning to transfer. Marla thought I was just settling in and moving on. But every time she underestimated me, it only made me push harder. I kept my Columbia rejection letter taped inside my desk drawer. Every time I felt tired or wanted to quit, I looked at it. Not out of anger anymore, but focus. That letter wasn't an end. It was fuel. By the end of my first year, I had a near-perfect GPA, enough savings to cover application fees, and a new fire in my chest. I stayed up late rewriting my transfer essay a dozen times. I didn't mention Marla. I didn't write about revenge. I wrote about resilience. And when I finally hit submit on that Columbia transfer application, myself this time, I didn't tell a single soul. The world still saw me as the kid who got left behind. But in secret, I was becoming someone new. Someone they'd never see coming. 2 years passed like slow-burning fuel. Every all-nighter, every double shift, every lonely moment, it all led to one email. "Congratulations, Eli Turner. Welcome to Columbia University." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not crying, not cheering, just breathing. Deep, steady breaths. Because this time it was real. And no one could take it from me. I didn't tell my dad. I didn't tell Marla. I didn't even tell the few friends I'd made at Lincoln. This was mine and mine alone. I packed my things quietly and moved to New York with nothing but 2 suitcases, a scholarship, and the last bit of money I'd saved working overtime. I found a shared apartment off campus with 2 other transfer students who minded their own business. Perfect. Walking onto Columbia's campus felt surreal. I wasn't visiting, I wasn't dreaming. I belonged. I ran my hand along the stone walls, the same ones I had once thought I'd never touch. I started classes immediately, head down, heart calm. I didn't wear school merch or post online. I blended in. No attention, no noise. Because this wasn't just a new beginning, this was enemy territory. And then 3 weeks into the semester, I saw him. Trevor. He looked thinner than I remembered. His hair was messy, eyes tired. He sat on a bench outside the student center, head in his hands, muttering to himself over a textbook. I ducked behind a tree. I had imagined seeing him here 100 different ways, but not like this. I thought he'd be gloating, bragging, throwing parties. Instead, he looked like someone barely holding it together. Later that day, I confirmed what I'd suspected. He was still enrolled, but barely passing. Columbia wasn't what he expected. Too many deadlines, too many professors who didn't care about his excuses. I smiled to myself. The game was starting. Marla didn't know I was here. Neither did Trevor. I didn't plan to reveal anything until I had my diploma in hand, until I'd done what they thought I could never do. Every day, I walked past Trevor like a ghost. He never recognized me. Why would he? To him, I was supposed to be in Missouri, wasting time at some state school. But I was here, at his school, on my terms. And while he struggled through every lecture and late paper, I was acing mine, quietly, methodically, and with a plan buried deep in my chest. I didn't need to shout. Not yet. I just needed to wait. Because revenge doesn't always need fire. Sometimes it just needs patience. It happened by accident one rainy afternoon. I was leaving the library when I saw him, Trevor, slumped over on a bench outside the Student Services building. His hoodie was soaked, and his eyes were bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. I walked past slowly, and he looked up. "Hey man, do you know where Professor Klein's office is?" he asked, voice rough. He didn't recognize me. Not even a flicker of familiarity in his eyes. 2 years ago, he'd mocked me in our kitchen. Now, he couldn't even place my face. I nodded. "Yeah, I'm heading that way. Come on." That was the beginning. I introduced myself with a fake last name. Told him I was a junior transfer, same as him. He bought it without question. Maybe because he never really saw me before, and now he was too distracted to notice. He started talking. A lot. "Bro, this school's insane. I've already missed like 3 deadlines, and I don't even know if my TA hates me or I'm not built for this academic crap," he groaned, rubbing his temples. I pretended to sympathize. "Yeah, professors can be brutal. Want help proofreading your essay?" He handed it over without hesitation. It was bad, like high school level bad. Rambling, unfocused, full of grammatical mistakes. And this was the guy who got in when I didn't? The guy Marla swore was the future of the family? Over the next few weeks, I played the part of helpful study buddy. Trevor texted me nearly every day, for notes, reminders, or just to vent. He had no idea who I really was, and I used every moment to learn. He wasn't just lazy. He was entitled. He told me his mom paid for a private tutor back home to clean up his essays, and had even contacted one of his professors to explain his mental health situation. "She said if I fail this semester, it's her failure too," he laughed. "She won't let me go down." It made my stomach turn. Marla hadn't changed. She was still propping him up, still clearing every obstacle for him while pretending to be the perfect mother. And Trevor? He didn't care. He never had to earn anything. Meanwhile, I was working 2 part-time jobs and surviving on instant noodles. Every conversation with him made me more sure. He didn't deserve Columbia. He didn't even want it. And yet, here he was, wasting the opportunity one fought for. I kept smiling, kept nodding, kept collecting his complaints like puzzle pieces. Because this time, I wasn't powerless. I had his trust. And soon, I'd have everything I needed to bring the truth into the light. I got the email while eating a peanut butter sandwich in my cramped apartment kitchen. Subject: internship offer, Hamilton and Rowe Law Associate. I stared at the screen, rereading it 4 times just to be sure. I had landed it, one of the most competitive internships in Manhattan. Paid, prestigious, career launching, and the same firm Marla once told everyone was where Trevor belonged someday. I smiled to myself. The next week, I walked into the sleek glass building wearing the only decent blazer I owned. I met partners who shook my hand like I already belonged. I took notes during meetings, did research for real cases, and watched how the legal world moved. I wasn't just here for revenge anymore. I was building a future. But then the news reached home. Marla found out through a family friend who saw my name on the firm's LinkedIn up. I knew because I got a message from my dad that night. "Did you really get into Hamilton and Rowe? When were you going to tell us?" Us. Like we were still a family. I didn't reply. The next day, Trevor texted me. "WTF man, why would you go behind my back?" I chuckled. He still didn't realize who I was. A few hours later, I spotted him outside the student union, pacing, red in the face. I kept my distance, but I heard enough. He was yelling at someone on the phone. "I told you, Mom. You were supposed to help me, not let him take it. I don't even know how he got that internship. He's a nobody." For the first time, Trevor was unraveling. Marla tried to cover it up. She called the firm, trying to get information. Of course, they told her nothing. She didn't have the control she thought she had anymore. And my dad? He was confused. I saw it in his texts. Hesitation, guilt, even curiosity. He'd always trusted Marla's version of things. But now that I was rising on my own, Cracks were forming in the story she sold him. Still, I stayed silent. I went to work, went to class, kept helping Trevor with assignments when he asked. He still hadn't figured it out. And I made sure he didn't. Not yet. But inside, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: control. For once, I wasn't chasing behind anyone. I wasn't begging for a seat at the table. I was the table now. Every move I made from this point on would be calculated. Every success would speak louder than their lies. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. I was just getting started. It was a Friday afternoon, just after my last class, when I saw her, Marla, standing at the edge of Columbia's main lawn, arms folded, eyes locked on me like she'd been waiting all day. I didn't panic. I didn't even blink. She walked straight up to me. "Eli," she said, tight-lipped, "why am I hearing from Mrs. Camden that you've been enrolled here for a year?" I shrugged, casually slipping my phone into my pocket. Guess word gets around. Her face flushed. "You lied to everyone. To me, to your father. What game are you playing?" I smiled softly, the kind that hides a storm. "Oh, I'm not playing. I'm graduating." She stared at me like she was trying to make sense of what I'd just said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folded printout, one I kept for this exact moment. I handed it to her. It was my original Columbia rejection letter, dated 2 years ago. "You remember this?" I asked. "It's the email I got after you told me you submitted my application." She didn't respond. I leaned in slightly, my voice calm. "You didn't forget, Marla. You never sent it. You knew how much Columbia meant to me, and you made sure Trevor got the spotlight instead." She started to speak, but I held up my hand. "I don't need your excuses. I know everything now. You sabotaged me, lied to Dad, let me believe I'd failed. But you know what? I didn't fall apart. I worked. I studied. I transferred. And now I'm here." Her lips parted slightly, like she was going to argue, but nothing came out. "And Trevor?" I continued. "He's failing, struggling, still being spoon-fed while pretending to be something he's not. You handed him Columbia, and he doesn't even care. Meanwhile, I built everything from the ground up." She shook her head, eyes glistening, as if she were the victim. I stepped closer. "You tried to ruin my future, Marla, so I rebuilt it out of spite, and did it better than your own son." She stood frozen. "I'm not asking for your approval. I just wanted you to see me, see what you tried to bury, and what refused to stay buried." Marla turned away without a word and walked off the campus, slower than she'd come in. I watched her go, not with anger, but peace. For the first time, I held the truth, and I didn't need her to admit anything. The truth was standing right here, in full view. The day I had dreamed about for years finally arrived: Columbia graduation. The campus buzzed with proud parents, camera flashes, and caps decorated with glitter and dreams. I stood among my classmates, calm and ready, wearing my black gown and deep blue stole. My name was printed in the program, not just as a graduate, but as an honors recipient. I had done it. I glanced toward the audience and saw them, Marla, Trevor, and my father, Chuck, sitting quietly in the middle row. Marla had her usual tight, performative smile plastered on. Trevor looked like he hadn't slept, his shoulders slumped, hands clenched in his lap. And my dad, he looked unsure, like the truth was finally too loud to ignore. When my name was called, Elijah Turner, Bachelor of Political Science, summa cum laude, I stepped forward with steady feet. The crowd clapped. Then it happened. And this year's recipient of the Perseverance and Leadership Award, Elijah Turner. The cheers grew louder. I felt the heat of the spotlight, but also the weight of every late night, every ignored call, every time I had to pretend I was okay when I wasn't. And now none of that could be denied. I accepted the plaque with a simple nod. No tears. No trembling. Just quiet victory. After the ceremony, graduates flooded the lawn for pictures. Families hugged, laughed, cried. I took my time walking over. When I finally approached them, Marla was the first to speak. "You looked nice up there," she said flatly, the smile not quite reaching her eyes. Trevor stayed silent, jaw tight. He couldn't look at me. My dad cleared his throat. "Eli, I owe you an apology. A big one." I said nothing, just waited. "I believed her when you needed me to believe you. I let you fight alone, and I'm sorry." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." It was all I gave him. Not forgiveness. Not anger. Just truth. He looked down, knowing it would take more than one sentence to fix what had been broken. Marla reached out to touch my shoulder, but I stepped back. Her hand froze midair, and I watched the cracks in her perfect face begin to show. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had outgrown it. I had become everything they said I couldn't. As I turned away, classmates waved me over for pictures. Laughter echoed around me, and for once, it included me. I walked forward, not looking back. That chapter was closed. They used to call me the quiet one, the stepkid, the backup plan, the afterthought. Now, the name on the door reads, Elijah Turner, Associate Attorney, Whitman and Rowe LLP. Downtown Manhattan, 34th floor. Glass walls, hardwood floors. cases stacked on my desk, real lives in my hands, and mine finally truly belongs to me. I'm not telling this story with bitterness. I'm telling it with clarity, because sometimes we need to remember. You don't have to destroy someone to beat them. Just let them think they've won. Let them underestimate you, then succeed so loudly they can't ignore it. Marla hasn't spoken to me since graduation. Not directly. I heard through someone that Trevor dropped out a year later. Couldn't handle the pressure, or maybe the silence from everyone who finally saw the truth. My father occasionally sends short texts. Proud of you, or saw your firm in the paper. I respond with polite thank you. But that bridge, it's a slow rebuild, and I'm not in a rush. He lost time and I gained peace. I guess that's balance. I live alone now. Apartment with high ceilings, a plant I haven't killed yet, and a coffee machine that knows me better than most people ever did. I bike to work when I can, take walks through Central Park when the weight of memory starts knocking. I still think about what could have been if Marla had just let me apply, if my own father had read between the lines. But then again, if they hadn't tried to bury me, I wouldn't have learned how to grow. The world didn't hand me anything. I carved it out with cracked hands and long nights and sheer spite. That anger used to drive me. Now it just fuels discipline. This life I built, it wasn't to prove anything to them. Not anymore. It was to prove something to the kid I used to be, the one who almost gave up. To you listening right now, maybe you've got a Marla in your life. Maybe someone tried to write your ending before your story even began. Let them. Then surprise them. Because sometimes revenge doesn't look like fire. Sometimes it's a cap, a gown, and a name they never expected to see in lights. My name is Elijah Turner, and this life, this win, is mine. What do you think? Was Eli right to rise in silence and let his success speak for itself? Or should he have confronted his family sooner? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if powerful stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.